And joining us from the NBC studios here in Washington is Democratic Governor Ed Rendell, who just finished his appearance on Meet the Press. Governor, thanks for being with us.
Good morning.
And you heard Governor Daniels. Did you want to respond to what advice or lack of advice he was going to give you? I saw you smiling in the monitor.
Well, actually, Mitch is right about one thing. Infrastructure is an answer to a lot of our problems. First, the nation has to deal with its infrastructure problem. We have too many decaying bridges. We have too many inadequate roads. We have levees and dams that are about to break and have broken in Cedar Rapids and New Orleans. We have ports that are not competitive. We don't have a national railway system. We need to do more for freight rail. So we have great challenges. But the good thing about investing in infrastructure at the state and federal level is that it creates jobs. It's the single best job creator. Analysts say for $1 billion spent in infrastructure, anywhere between 25 and 40,000 jobs are produced. And these are good, family-sustaining jobs that cannot be outsourced. So that's a very important point. And I think as we go forward, the president is dedicated to investing more in infrastructure because we need it and because it is a job creator. The original stimulus package, in my judgment, was good and it is working. It should have had a higher percentage of the dollars invested in infrastructure. There was some doubt whether states could spend the money quickly enough. I think we're dispelling those doubts by the way we're doing it. And it's an issue that cuts across political lines. Republicans believe in infrastructure. Senator Imhoff, John Mica in the House, they are people who have already spoken out about the need for more infrastructure spending as a way to not only take care of our problems, but to stimulate the economy. I think it's something that with presidential leadership, we can get a true bipartisan effort to really continue the progress that's being made on the economy, continue to move it forward.
Well, let me pick up on the questioning from David Gregory this morning on Meet the Press, because he asked you about whether or not you would support a second stimulus, and you said you don't think we need one, at least not yet. Why?
Well, first of all, because I think it's important to monitor how successful the first stimulus is. And understand, we just got most of the stimulus money in March, April, May, and June. And we're only 4 or 5 months removed from that. I'll give you an example. We got our transportation money in the middle of March. That's 6 months ago. So far, out of the $1 billion Pennsylvania has gotten, projects have started that will spend $800 million of that, so 80% of that. So we're doing well. But we've got to take a deep breath and monitor how successful the stimulus has been. The most successful part in terms of direct and immediate job creation is infrastructure spending, transportation, water and sewer investments, etc. The alternative energy investments. Those are the biggest and quickest job creators. And I think you can do that without necessarily having a second stimulus bill. You can do that by taking the transportation bill, which, as you know, has to be reauthorized, and we haven't done it for a while, and up-fronting some of that transportation money into the next 12 to 18 months. That would have a dramatic effect on the economy, and it's something that we're going to have to do anyway. So it's not additional spending, it's spending that we're going to have to do down the line anyway. But if we upfront it, it will have a tremendous impact on the economy. And I think the president is thinking about that, and as I said, there's bipartisan support for that among leadership. I heard Senator Imhoff say at a hearing that I testified in that infrastructure spending is the second most important thing we can do in terms of investing money after spending for defense, and he's absolutely right.
You're a veteran of our programming. We appreciate you joining us. Let me remind our audience that our phone lines are open. We'll get to your calls momentarily, or you can send us an email at journal@cspan.org. Before we get to calls, I want to ask you to comment on a piece that you co-wrote with your predecessor, Governor Tom Ridge, yesterday in the Washington Post and this morning in the New York Times. After years, work beginning on a September 11th site in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Has this been the forgotten story of 9/11?
It sort of has. Most of the emphasis has been on the Twin Towers and on the Pentagon, and those are obviously tragic events that should be memorialized. But what happened on Flight 93 was the beginning of Americans fighting back against the war on terror. 40 Americans decided that they weren't going to sit idly by and hope for some miracle, that they were going to take things into their own hands, and if they had to lose their lives, at least they were going to make sure that other Americans didn't. They stormed the cockpit, and they caused that plane to go down in that field in Pennsylvania instead of hitting the Capitol or hitting the White House and killing hundreds and hundreds of people. These were true American heroes, and this story has to be memorialized for all times. And it's taken too long. The state of Pennsylvania for a while was the only investor. We put over $18 million into this project, and now the federal government's joining us, and Secretary Salazar came in and broke the logjam, and he deserves a lot of credit. We're going to have a terrific memorial which will remind younger Americans what happened in the air above Shanksville, and it's truly the #1 story of 9/11.
Let's get to our phone calls. Carolyn joining us from Greensburg, Indiana, with Pennsylvania Governor Ed Rendell joining us here in Washington. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call.
Good morning, Carolyn.
Good morning. What I was calling about is on the deficit and on the economy and things. If I feel that if people want to help that or help the war efforts, why don't they sell war bonds and take that money to support the war instead of us paying so much money to support the war?
Well, you know, this is an interesting, very interesting suggestion. And Carolyn, not only war bonds, but we're thinking of something called Build America bonds as a way to finance infrastructure repair all over the country. And it's a good idea because it can finance the war, ordinary Americans helping to finance the effort. But remember, a bond still is a form of debt. It's the American government, the Treasury, selling you a bond, which you get a rate of return on, interest on. The money goes into a direct project to help us, but it's still a debt that we must repay. We sell you the bond, and we've got to pay you interest. But I think it's a better idea because it would be a lower interest rate than the normal way we have to borrow money or borrow from the Chinese or borrow from foreign countries. And I think it would help the morale of Americans. We buy a bond to finance the war. We buy a bond to help rebuild this country's infrastructure, our roads and our highways and our bridges. I think it's a good idea, and we've urged the administration to take a look at it.
We have a line set aside for those of you in Pennsylvania. Mike is joining us from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Good morning with Governor Rendell.
Hi. I was wondering,
hello, Mike.
Stimulus money you get if you're going to do anything about the Wesley Snyder scandal that happened 2 years ago.
Mike, I apologize. I don't know anything about it.
Oh, really?
We'll go to Anna, who's joining us from. Going to Anna in Dallas next. Good morning.